So I promised you a fair draw. I'm using a random comment picker. So good luck, everyone. And the first winner is... Hey yo, it's Wendy here again from Toonpish Crafts, and I hope you're doing okay. Now you may remember a couple of weeks ago I made a teddy bear from polyurethane blocks. It was a mammoth task, but I really loved how it came out. Unfortunately, it's still unstable. It's like a jigsaw puzzle that's been put together, but you can't pick it up, you can't hang it because it's all in pieces still. So hopefully in this video, now I haven't started it yet, but I've got an idea of what I'm going to do. So hopefully in this video, I can show you how I'm going to stable it so it can hang on a wall. Fingers crossed. So this is my jigsaw piece bear. It's stuck together with little sticky pads. And to start with, I am going to put plastic right the way underneath it. Now, obviously, it was a little tricky lifting it up and sliding the plastic underneath, but I need the plastic to hold in any resin. Now, these sticky pads I bought from Amazon. They are linked in my Amazon storefront, and they're the same type of double-sided sticky pads that I used originally. I don't need the full length, so I'm going to cut it down the middle. Now that was a little too thick, and I do end up the next one cutting into 3, and that was a better size for me. But to start with, I used half of it, and I'm going to go around that entire outside edge with this double-sided sticky foam pads. Now, as it is the same size as the pads I used originally, it should give me the same distance between the outside edge and my framework that I'm going to be using. You see, I don't want to box this bear in. I want to keep it in the same sort of shape with all the ins and outs as it is at the moment. I wanted to get it into every little nook and cranny, and I'm just using a metal rod to help me get it into those tight areas. I got the hang of it after a while, but it was quite tricky to start with, but this metal pokies tool definitely helped. I had to make sure that the sticky tape was a lot lower than the top of the tiles because I don't want that seen when it is covered in resin. The last thing I want is the tape to stick up over the top of the resin. So that's the first bit. Now I did the entire outside edge. I kept having to turn it around on my worktop, and I did the entire edge. So this is PVC plastic. Now resin doesn't stick to PVC plastic. I bought them as binding covers, and they're 250 microns. So they're quite thick. I mean, they're very thick actually. I'm using a very cheap guillotine here, but it's ideal to slice the tape down. There's no measurements with this. I just wanted it to be above a centimetre, more or less 2.5 or an inch thick. And I'm just cutting strips from these sheets of plastic. Now, because this PVC is quite thick, I can bend it and it will stay where I put it. Thinner pieces of plastic would work, but they won't necessarily stay at an angle that you bend it in. So as this is quite thick, it works beautifully, and I figured this would be good for the edge, the case if you like, to hold in the resin, and this will go around the outside edge. And now I've got my sticky pads right around the outside edge, I can stick the plastic to the sticky pads. If I bent it the wrong way, which I inevitably did on several occasions, you can just turn around the angle so it bends the other direction. It still stays and it doesn't snap. Absolutely the perfect type of plastic for this. And I bought it by accident. So I had it in my drawer and I'm just so glad that I had it. Now I've still got the back of the sticky pads on, they're not sticky at the moment, so I can keep bending these pieces and get the right shape for the outside edge. I'm using a metal ruler to get the right edge. I'm just marking it with my thumb in the right place and bending it in the right direction. And hopefully, it does take a while, but I can go right round the outside edge and have a great framework. I'm sorry about the camera action here, but I'm trying to get everything in shot and I still want you to see what I'm doing. So that's the first bit then stuck. And then I do the second bit and stick that. And I go right the way around the outside edge of the whole bear, giving it a frame. Sticking it to the sticky back plastic pieces, foam pieces that I've already put around the bear. And then once I've got my entire frame done, I will hot glue it to the plastic sheet. Hot glue is brilliant for sticking things quickly, and I could adjust the angle of the plastic to make sure it was more or less upright while I was doing it. And as the PVC plastic is already stuck to the bear, it's not going to move. So the hot glue will just fill in all the gaps and seal the bear in. That's the plan, including all the joins that I had to make. Again, it takes me quite a while, but I've filled up all the cracks, all the joins between the plastic, and once I'm happy that I have an edge, then I just lift up the plastic and use ball clips to hold it up in case I've missed anywhere where resin could seep out. I've got now a bucket basically around my bear that will stop any resin leaks. Stage 1 complete. That took a day. So now I've got to think about the resin, and I've purchased some squeezy bottles from Amazon. These are really cheap squeezy bottles, but the reason I've chose them is 1, because they're so squeezy, and 2, because they have a really fine tip. They hold about 100 ml, I think. They're about 100 ml bottles, but that fine tip will go in between each of the squares, so I can push the resin between the squares. That's the plan anyway. I'm going to use Let's Resin casting resin for this. I do have a nice 10% discount code for Let's Resin, which is in the description box below. And this video is completely sponsored by Let's Resin, so thanks Let's Resin. And I'm using just plain white pigment. Now you may be wondering why I'm not using polyurethane resin for this. And the reason is that I want it to seep. Now polyurethane goes off so quickly, I don't think it would seep underneath the bear and seal it from the back. So I wanted white resin to seep underneath all the tiles so it will hold together underneath. Resin does wander. It wanders and spreads, and that's what I want it to do from the back. Now I'm putting it between each of the tiles. You can see I'm pushing the tip down between the cracks of the tiles. It will seep underneath. That is the plan. I don't want to get resin on top of these tiles. Now, some people I know would pour resin over the top, let it sink in and wipe it over, or when it's cured, sand it back. I'm not going to do that. I don't want a solid white piece that I have to sand back. I want the resin to go underneath the tiles. At the end, I don't want the resin to be the same height as the tiles. I do have some tiles that are slightly wonky, and if I was to pour white right the way over the top of this, I would have to sand back immensely to get every tile to show through. Majority of them are the same height, but there are some at the edges that are wonky, they are slightly proud, they are slightly lower, and I want that feeling at the end where the tiles are higher than the grout. And to do that, I've got to get the grout down in between the tiles. Now I know I've set myself a mammoth task, an absolutely huge task. I know it's going to take me time, but when you do a project and you want the result at the end, you're prepared to put in the time to get that result. And that I know is going to take me time, so I'm prepared to deal with it. I also know it's going to take up my room space completely for at least a week. But this is going to my granddaughter, and she's definitely worth the effort. Now, as you can see here, I am pushing that knob between the tiles. They're not solid at this point. They have give. I can push that knob in there and it gives. It looks as if it's filling up the gaps, but it sinks down underneath, which means I'm going to have to go over the entire bear at least twice to get the amount of white I want between each block. Now, it did take me a long time, and to start with, the first time I mixed up resin, I mixed up 200ml, and the amount of time it takes me to actually put it in the bottle, squeeze it and clean up each tile if I mess it up, which I didn't want white dots or messes on top of the tiles, so I was cleaning up as I went with cotton buds. At 200ml was just getting too hot, too thick. I couldn't squeeze it out of the bottle. So after that, all I was making up was 60ml a time. 60ml, use it in the bottles. 60ml, use it in the bottles. Each time I made a batch of resin, I used the bottles, I cleaned the bottles, and I moved on to the next bottle. And I did about 5 or 6 amounts per sitting. This is day 4. I am cleaning out these little plastic bottles, but I've bought some newer ones that were easier to squeeze because my hands were getting so tired. I've got osteoarthritis in my hands and my grip was really playing havoc with squeezing those bottles. When the resin gets warm, it's more difficult to squeeze out of a tiny hole. And these bottles have a bigger hole, which means I could squeeze out the resin quicker, which was fine. Worked really well, but I was getting more of a mess because the resin was coming out quicker. Moving on to day 5. And at this point, I've got the whole piece done at least 1 coat. So the resin has sunk back down and I'm now again going around the outside edge and over the areas to get the resin to the height that I want. It also means I can fill in any air pockets or divots, but 60ml at a time I was doing about 5 lots a day. I was getting a neck ache because I was leaning over it all the time. My hands were really aching, but I had to get this done, and to be honest, I was enjoying it. You know what I'm like, I enjoy the challenge. So I promised you a fair draw. I'm using a random comment picker, so good luck everyone. And the first winner is Kim Jackman. Congratulations, Kim. You need to send me an email so that I can get your details of where you send your items to. My email address is on the information page, or you could email me through my website. And winner number 2 is Cassie Kimler. Well done, Cassie. Again, contact me and I'll get the items sent out to you. Winner number 3 is Teresa Hotter. Well done, Teresa. Again, don't forget to email me so I can get your details and send the items out to you. Winner number 4, Hilda Lewis. Well done, Hilda. 1 more winner to be picked, and that is Catherine Bowman. Thank you so much for everybody to enter in this giveaway. It's been absolutely amazing. The response was phenomenal. 802 comments. So let's get back to the video. So here's when we're getting near to the end. I'm getting nearer to finishing this bear. It has taken an age, to be fair. And I did try 1 cup where I poured the whole cup over the top of the tiles. I scraped the resin into the gaps and then I cleaned up. And it took me so long to clean up the tiles. that it was much more beneficial for me to do it this way with the bottles. Now, I didn't film that because I thought if I'm being silly and just could do the whole lot by pouring white over the top and it taking an hour, why am I taking days and days to do this? But I wanted to do it so that the resin wasn't up to the top of the tiles. And I figured most other people would just pour it over the top, clean it up and sand it down. That's what they would do. Why are you being so silly, Wendy? But I really did want to do it my way. I'm stubborn. I am so stubborn. I know I am. But I got the result in the end that I really wanted. So did I do it the wrong way? I don't think I did. I think I did it the way that was right for me at the time. So I've done it. I've done the entire bear. I've got the white in completely, and now it's time to take the edging off. Now, I did leave in the sound effects for you guys because it was just so nice to hear those cracks of it coming off. I was aware that the edge wasn't perfect because my little sticky pads and my PVC plastic that I used were different sizes in different areas, and I knew I'd have to come up with an idea to sort that out, but it worked. It didn't leak. I think there was one little place that leaked, but it was such a tiny amount, it was really nothing to worry about. My plastic sheet worked if I can get the bear off it, which I still don't know at this point. But it was a really nice feeling after working on it for 6 days to get the white in, to be able to get the outside edge and the plastic off. I felt as if I was getting somewhere. The outside edge eventually came off and it released from the plastic beautifully, and that plastic is ideal. Again, I did buy that from Amazon and it will be linked in my Amazon storefront below. But I'm really happy with this so far. I do need to tidy up the edges. And I was thinking, how am I going to tidy them up? Because there's a lot of large areas and there's lots of quite thin areas. But as it stands, it's one piece. And then now I've got to sort out those edges. You can see here how messy some of them are. Now, a lot of people don't have a bandsaw. I'm lucky enough to have a bandsaw. I was thinking that a jigsaw would actually do the same thing. So I actually took this out to the garage, turned on my bandsaw, and I sliced through these pieces to get rid of all the thick areas. Now, some parts I did have to turn the bear upside down to do so that the blade would work, but the majority of it was done with the bear facing upwards, and I just chopped through the pieces that were too thick. And again, it was quite therapeutic, because I knew I was sorting this out and I was going to have a really nice edged bear at the end of it. It still has a very thin white line around the bear, and that's what I wanted, but I didn't want all these pieces that were really out of shape. It was a little bit tricky trying to work out sometimes where to put it on the saw, because the bear had to stay to the right because the saw hasn't got enough room to the left. But as I said, I turned the bear over sometimes to be able to get into some of the areas. And once it was all completely shaped, then I gave it a good sand right the way around the outside edge so that I had a really clean, nice outside edge. And I'm really happy with this little bear. It's not so little. It's quite big actually. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed already, consider doing so. It doesn't cost anything and it does help my channel out, and I really hope that you enjoy my content. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this one and I hope you've got something out of it. It's definitely a lot of fun. This bear is going to go on my new granddaughter's wall. Millie, I hope you like your bear. Thank you so much for coming to watch my video. Come back and see me next week, because you never know what I'm going to be up to. I never know what I'm going to be doing. Have a great week. Happy crafting, and bye for now.